After my car accident landed me in the ER, I texted my husband. But he'd blocked me while vacationing in Hawaii with his ex using my airline miles. He told everyone I was faking it and stole my medical leave pay to upgrade her flights. The locks were changed when I got home. My stuff was dumped with a note. "You're someone else's problem now." But I found their hotel reservation and sent it too. The smell of burned rubber still hits me sometimes, like a ghost memory. One second I was driving home from another 12-hour shift, the next I was pinned under the steering wheel, airbag smoke choking me, glass in my hair. I remember the ambulance lights slicing through the dark, the paramedic's voice calm but urgent. "Stay with me, ma'am." I stayed. When I woke up in the ER, everything hurt, the kind of pain that doesn't have a clean edge. My first thought wasn't even about me. It was about calling Ethan, my husband, my emergency contact, the man who promised in sickness and in health. I reached for my phone with my one good hand, sent a simple text. "Car accident, in the ER, please come." But the text didn't go through. At first I thought it was bad service. Then I tried calling, straight to voicemail, again and again. That's when the screen flashed something that didn't make sense. "Message not delivered, you've been blocked." Blocked by my husband. I just stared at the phone, heartbeat thudding in my ears louder than the monitors. I tried calling from the nurse's phone, same result. That hollow automated voice. "The person you are trying to reach is unavailable." While I lay in that hospital bed, bruised and stitched, I opened social media. And there he was, Ethan, smiling on a beach in Maui, drink in hand next to Claire, his ex. The caption, "Paradise with my person, palm tree." The kicker, the tickets they were bragging about were my airline miles. I'd saved them for our anniversary trip. He'd taken her instead. I scrolled deeper and saw comments from our mutual friends. "So happy for you too, finally. Glad you're with someone genuine this time." That one hit like a sledgehammer, because then I saw the post he'd made before leaving. "Sometimes people fake being broken just to trap you. Glad I'm done with lies." He was talking about me, while I was literally lying in a hospital bed. By the time they discharged me a week later, my leg was in a brace and I was drowning in silence. No calls from him, no messages. My mom picked me up and drove me home. I remember thinking maybe it was all some misunderstanding. Maybe he didn't know how bad it was. But when we pulled into the driveway, the house looked off. There were garbage bags on the lawn, my garbage bags. My clothes sticking out of one, the corner of a framed photo in another. When I got to the door, my key didn't work. The locks had been changed. Taped to the front door was a yellow sticky note, written in Ethan's handwriting. "You're someone else's problem now." That was it. No signature, no explanation, just that line. Inside those garbage bags were my things, ruined, mixed with trash. And when I checked my bank account later that night, I realized something worse. The direct deposit from my medical leave pay, the one my employer sent to our joint account, was gone. Transferred. Every cent. The next morning, through a haze of pain and rage, I found something in one of the crumpled bags. A printed hotel reservation from the Four Seasons Maui. His name, her name, the dates, the suite. I just stared at it, shaking. My hand hovered over my phone as I typed a name in the search bar, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Someone who could make things very complicated for Ethan. Because she wasn't just anyone. She was someone who had every reason to hate Claire and every resource to make both their lives hell. And I was about to send her that hotel reservation. Ethan and I met 6 years ago in Sacramento, back when I still believed love was something that could fix a person. I was working as a respiratory therapist, doing night shifts at Mercy General, and he was a financial analyst at a mid-sized investment firm. He had that calm, buttoned-up confidence that made me feel safe at first. The kind of man who'd bring me coffee after a double shift and joke that my scrubs made me look like a superhero. When we met, he was just out of a long-term relationship with Claire. I knew about her early on. She was one of those picture-perfect women who posted everything. Her yoga poses, her smoothies, her grind-set quotes. Ethan told me she cheated on him, broke his trust, and messed him up for good. I remember feeling protective of him, like I was helping him heal. That was my first mistake. Our relationship moved fast. He said he'd never met anyone as loyal or grounded as me. We married after 2 years. For a while, things were fine. He was affectionate, supportive, and he made me feel like we were a team. but little things started to show. He'd get cold whenever I had to work late. He'd check my phone as a joke. He'd guilt me for spending time with my mom or friends. Then came the financial control. He convinced me to merge our accounts so we could plan our future. I didn't think twice. I trusted him. He handled the bills, the savings, the investments. I worked, he managed. That's how he liked to put it. When I got promoted to lead therapist and started earning more than him, something in him changed. He'd make comments, little digs, like, "Don't forget who paid rent when you were still figuring your career out." Or, "You think you're the boss now because of a few extra bucks." The tension built quietly. I told myself it was stress, that all couples had rough patches. He'd pull away for days, then come back with flowers and apologies that sounded rehearsed. I thought we were finding our way back to each other. Then Claire came back. It started when she reached out to him just to catch up. He told me about it, said he wanted to be honest, said she'd changed. I didn't like it, but I didn't want to be controlling. I remember her sending him cookies for old time's sake, and him laughing it off like it was nothing. But he started comparing us. Subtly, he'd mention how Claire used to be more laid back, how she didn't get as worked up about things. I'd catch him looking at her Instagram, smiling at her stories. When I finally asked him if he was seeing her, he laughed in my face, told me I was paranoid. Gaslit me so hard that I actually apologized for not trusting him. I remember crying in our bathroom, feeling stupid and small. Then came the car accident, the one that ripped the blindfold off. That night, I'd stayed late covering a coworker's shift because Ethan said he was working late too. Turns out, working late meant being at a bar downtown with Claire. I saw the receipts later in my email from the joint account. While I was being cut out of my mangled car, he was buying her champagne. And now, after everything, after the blocking, the stolen money, the public humiliation, I was staring at that hotel reservation. The one that proved he didn't just betray me emotionally. He stole from me. He used my airline miles, my income, and my name to spoil his ex. And the person I was about to send that reservation to, that was Danielle, Claire's older sister. The same sister Claire had once ruined by sleeping with her fiancé 5 years ago. Danielle never forgave her. And Danielle happened to be a corporate attorney for the same investment firm where Ethan worked. I knew exactly what sending that email could do. It wouldn't just blow up their little Hawaiian fantasy. It could destroy their lives. And for the first time since the crash, that idea didn't scare me. It comforted me. The day after I found the hotel reservation, I couldn't sit still. My body still ached from the accident, but the rage was stronger than the pain. My mom kept telling me to rest, that karma would handle it. But I wasn't interested in karma. I wanted consequences, real ones. I sat at her kitchen table with my laptop open, staring at the email draft to Danielle Mercer. I'd already attached the Four Seasons reservation, the bank withdrawal confirmation showing Ethan's transfer of my medical leave pay, and screenshots from his Maui posts. My cursor hovered over send for an hour. Then I thought, why should I let them enjoy another minute of their little tropical getaway before it all burns? So I clicked send. Then I waited. The email didn't just go to Danielle. I copied HR at harrisonfinancial.com, Ethan's company's HR department, and just for good measure, Ethan.Bradley at harrisonfinancial.com himself. The subject line was simple: employee misconduct and financial fraud, supporting documentation attached. It felt like exhaling after weeks of drowning. Within 2 hours, Danielle replied, "I've been waiting for this moment for years. Leave it to my sister to destroy someone else's life with stolen money. I'll handle this." And I knew she meant it. By that night, I saw the ripple effect. Ethan's Instagram disappeared, so did Claire's. Friends started messaging me awkwardly. "Hey, are you okay? We're hearing things." I ignored them all. Then, on the third day, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer. But when I did, I recognized the voice. "You went too far, Haley." Ethan. His voice was sharp, frantic. I could hear waves in the background, Maui still. He didn't even start with an apology. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You've ruined my career. HR got your email. Danielle's threatening legal action. You're insane." I laughed loud, bitter. "You blocked me while I was in the hospital. You emptied my account. You told everyone I was faking my injuries." "And I'm insane," he hissed. "You don't know what's going on." "Then tell me." but he didn't, he hung up. That same night, I got an email from Harrison Financial's compliance department asking for a statement. They'd frozen Ethan's corporate accounts pending investigation. The email mentioned unauthorized transfer of medical benefit funds and potential identity misuse. I should have felt satisfied, but something didn't sit right. Because a few days later, I got a message from an unknown Instagram account. The profile picture was a photo of the beach in Maui. No name. The message read, "You think you've won, but you have no idea what Ethan was actually doing. You just opened the wrong door." The account vanished right after. Then, 2 days later, a detective called me. He wanted to speak in person about a case involving Ethan Bradley. When he showed up at my mom's house, his tone was cautious. He said there had been a report filed in my name, something about insurance fraud. Someone had used my medical records and hospital bills to submit duplicate claims. The paperwork had my name, but the address listed was our old house, the one Ethan was still living in before Hawaii. He said, "Ma'am, did you authorize anyone to handle your insurance paperwork?" My stomach dropped. "No." "Why?" He sighed. "Because whoever did this has been collecting payouts for months. It started long before your accident." That's when I realized the crash might not have been the start of Ethan's betrayal. It might have been part of a bigger scam. And suddenly, revenge didn't feel like enough. I needed the full truth. And to get it, I'd have to confront Danielle face to face. Because if Ethan had been running insurance fraud under my name, someone else was helping him. And if I knew anything about Claire and Danielle's history, that kind of family hate could easily twist into something darker. Danielle agreed to meet me the next morning at a cafe downtown, the kind of place where everything smelled like burnt espresso and expensive secrets. She was exactly as I remembered her from years ago, sharp suit, cold eyes, a presence that made everyone around her straighten up a little. When she saw me hobbling in with my brace, she stood but didn't offer pity, just a nod. "I read everything you sent," she said, sliding into a booth. "Your husband is screwed, but I think there's more you don't know." I told her about the detective's visit, about the insurance fraud, about the claims filed under my name. She didn't look surprised. In fact, she looked like she was waiting for me to say it. "Ethan didn't come up with that on his own," she said finally. "He's smart, but not that smart." She reached into her bag, pulled out a thick folder, and slid it across the table. Inside were printed emails, bank statements, and digital signatures, all linking my name to multiple fake insurance reimbursements and healthcare accounts. Every form was dated before my accident, some going back 8 months. I blinked, stunned. This was all done from my work credentials. How did he even get access? Danielle tapped a finger on one page. "See this email authorization code? That's from your hospital's HR portal. He couldn't have gotten that unless someone on the inside gave it to him." My mind scrambled. "But no one would risk that. Those systems are locked down." She leaned forward. "No one but someone you trusted." It hit me slowly, like ice water running down my spine. My coworker, Renee. Renee was my closest friend at the hospital, my lunch buddy, my venting partner, the one who helped me navigate the paperwork when I first applied for medical leave. She had access to the HR portal. She also had a soft spot for Ethan, used to joke that he was too handsome to be married to a workaholic. I didn't want to believe it, but as I looked at the printed records, I saw the employee code attached to the file authorizations. It was hers. I sat back, dizzy. "She helped him steal my identity," Danielle nodded slowly. "Looks that way, but here's where it gets worse." She flipped to another document, a bank transfer from one of the fake insurance payouts. The recipient was Claire Mercer. My breath caught. "He paid her." "Not exactly," Danielle said. "Looks like they were splitting the money, half to his account, half to hers. Your name was the front. The medical records made it look clean." I felt sick. They hadn't just betrayed me emotionally or financially. They'd used my own job, my own trust, to fund their luxury vacations. And then Danielle said something that made my skin crawl. "There's one more name involved," she said quietly. "Someone who approved one of the early claims. I thought it was a typo at first, but—" She slid the page toward me. I froze when I saw it. The name on the authorization line wasn't Renee. It was Haley Bradley, my own signature. My own handwriting. Except it wasn't mine. It was a forged signature on file with both my work's HR department and my health insurance provider. Whoever had done it had practiced it, until it was perfect. My stomach dropped. They were setting me up, I whispered. Danielle nodded. Ethan was preparing for this long before your accident. He knew what he was doing. The fraud claims in your name, the fake authorizations. He was building a paper trail that pointed straight to you, so that if it ever got caught, he'd be the whistleblower, she finished. The victim, the loyal husband reporting his wife's financial crimes. It all made sense now. His faking it posts, the sudden distance, the cold behavior, it was all part of a cover. I felt the air leave my chest. So the car accident, she hesitated. Haley, I don't know if it was an accident. I looked up sharply. What do you mean? Danielle leaned in closer, her voice low. The traffic camera footage shows another car right behind you. Same make and model as Ethan's company car. The one that went missing before he flew to Hawaii. I gripped the edge of the table, the room spinning around me. He didn't just try to ruin my name. He might have tried to end me. And suddenly, revenge wasn't just about justice anymore. It was about survival. The night after meeting with Danielle, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch at my mom's house, the folder spread open on the coffee table, staring at my forged signature. Every line of that fake, Haley Bradley, looked practiced, deliberate. It wasn't just fraud, it was a blueprint for my destruction. I kept replaying the accident in my head, the headlights behind me that didn't dim. The sudden nudge, the way my car spun like something pushed it. I told the police it felt like I'd been hit, but they found no other car at the scene. Now I knew why. Whoever was driving had taken off. If Ethan had done that, if he'd actually tried to kill me to tie off his loose ends, then waiting for the system to handle it wasn't enough. He'd already shown what he was capable of. I needed to fight smart, and I needed to fight first. So I made a plan. Step 1, protect myself legally. Danielle had connections, real ones. She agreed to introduce me to a private investigator she trusted. His name was Paul Kincaid, a retired cop-turned-pie who specialized in white-collar crimes. She said he didn't ask questions, he just found answers. I called him the next morning. When I told him what had happened, he didn't sound surprised. You're not the first woman I've seen get burned by a guy like that, he said. But you might be the first who's got this much evidence stacked in her favor. We can use it. I hired him on the spot. Step 2, set the trap. Ethan was too arrogant to disappear quietly. He'd always believed he could outsmart everyone, especially me. So I knew if I poked at his pride just right, he'd show his hand. I created a new email account under an alias, Aaron Wallace, supposedly a claims investigator from my hospital's insurance carrier. Using the language and format Danielle helped me write, I sent a short, professional email to both Ethan and Claire. We've identified discrepancies in recent claim payouts under the name Haley Bradley. As part of our compliance audit, we'll require signed confirmation of beneficiary relationships. Please respond within 48 hours to verify your connection to these accounts. If they replied, they'd have to acknowledge involvement or scramble to cover it, leaving a trail. Within an hour, the read receipts pinged. They'd both opened it. Then I waited. While I waited, Paul started digging. He pulled Ethan's phone records, GPS data, and corporate card transactions. Within 2 days, he found something buried in a digital paper trail Ethan thought he'd erased. Fuel receipts from a gas station 2 miles from the crash site, time-stamped 30 minutes before my accident. The purchase was made using his company card. Paul looked at me when he handed over the printout. That's not proof he rammed you, he said, but it's enough to make him sweat. And sweating was exactly what I wanted. Step 3. Get inside his world again on my terms. I couldn't confront him directly. He'd twist it, record it, use it against me. But there was someone who could get close to him without raising suspicion. Renee. I knew she was in on it, but she didn't know that I knew. So I texted her for the first time since the accident. Hey, I'm out of the hospital. I heard Ethan's been freaking out about something at work. Do you know what's going on? She responded immediately. OMG Haley, I'm so glad you're okay. He's super stressed, something about money missing. But don't get involved. Just focus on healing, fake concern. I almost laughed. Over the next few days, I kept her talking. I played the confused wife, the clueless victim. She started slipping details about Ethan's calls with Claire, about how he was trying to fix something before it got out of control. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. He said he can't believe Danielle's still alive after what Claire did to her family. still alive. I typed back, "What are you talking about?" "Oh, never mind, lol, forget I said that." I didn't. Step 4, pull the trigger. Paul tracked down security footage from the gas station where Ethan fueled up before the crash. It showed Ethan's Silver Company sedan pulling in, then another figure stepping out of the passenger seat. A woman, blonde. He zoomed in and paused the frame. The face was blurry, but it was unmistakable. Claire. They were both there, together. Minutes before my accident, I sat back, shaking, my breath catching in my throat. "They followed me," Paul nodded grimly. "Looks that way." That night, I took everything, footage, emails, the fraud documents, and packaged it all into a single encrypted folder. I scheduled it to auto-send to both the detective and the local news outlet if I didn't disable it within 48 hours. Because I was done waiting. I was going to face Ethan myself. And when I did, I wouldn't just have evidence, I'd have leverage. I waited until I knew he was back from Hawaii. I wanted to look him in the eye, see if he'd flinch. So I drove slowly, painfully, to the house that used to be ours. My leg was still stiff, but the rage was steady enough to keep me upright. When I pulled up, Ethan's car was in the driveway. The same silver sedan from the footage. My stomach twisted, but I kept walking. He opened the door before I could knock, like he'd been expecting me. He looked different, thinner, sunburned, eyes bloodshot. There was no guilt in his face, just annoyance. "Haley, you shouldn't be here." I smiled coldly. "You shouldn't be driving that car." His jaw tightened. "What are you talking about?" I stepped closer. "The one that was behind me the night of the accident. The one that mysteriously went missing before your flight. The same one that shows up on security footage 2 miles from the crash scene, with Claire in the passenger seat." His face drained of color. That was the first real reaction I'd gotten out of him. I pressed on. "So tell me, did she help you do it or just watch?" He didn't answer. He just looked past me, toward the street, like he was calculating exits. Then I said the words that froze him completely. "The footage is already with the detective. If anything happens to me or if that file goes missing, it's going public." His voice finally cracked. "You don't know what you've started." I almost laughed. "You already started it." Then I turned to leave, but he said something that stopped me cold. "You think I was using you," he said quietly. "You think I did this for her." He stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "But she wasn't who I was working with." I spun around. "What?" He smirked then, this sick, tired smirk. "You were so busy blaming Claire, you never stopped to ask yourself why Danielle was so eager to help you." I felt my chest tighten. "Don't you dare." "Look at the files," he interrupted. "Look at who first reported the fraud to the insurance company. It wasn't me." I froze. "You're lying." But the way he said it, flat, confident, made my stomach drop. I drove straight to Danielle's office downtown, heart pounding the whole way. I didn't even call. I just walked in, slammed the folder on her desk and said, "He said you're in on it." She didn't even blink. Just stared at me for a moment, then sighed. "Sit down, Haley." Her voice was calm, too calm. I didn't sit. "Tell me the truth." She folded her hands, her expression unreadable. "Ethan wasn't wrong about one thing," she said. "I did contact the insurance company first." I stared at her, stunned. "Why?" "Because I wanted him caught," she said. "I knew what he and Claire were doing months ago, but I couldn't prove it without bait. So I let him think he was winning." She tilted her head slightly. "You were the bait." The room went silent. I felt my throat close. "You used me." Danielle's eyes softened, but only slightly. "You were already his target. If I hadn't stepped in, you'd probably be dead by now. The crash wasn't an accident, Haley. He hired someone to clip your car, make it look like distracted driving. But Claire panicked, so she showed up that night. That's how they both got caught on camera." My knees went weak. I grabbed the edge of her desk to stay upright. "You knew all this, and you didn't warn me," she sighed. "If I'd warned you, he'd have disappeared with everything before I could build a case. Now we have proof: fraud, attempted homicide, identity theft." I was shaking. "You could have told me. You didn't have to let me think I was losing my mind." Her voice went low. "You wouldn't have believed me. You still loved him." She wasn't wrong, but that didn't make it easier to hear. Then her tone changed, softer, almost regretful. "There's one more thing you should know. The money Ethan stole, it's not all gone. Some of it's in a separate account under your name. I've been tracking it. He used you to launder stolen funds from another source entirely." My head snapped up. "What source?" She hesitated. "Harrison Financial's client escrow accounts. my breath caught. He stole from his company. Reading that felt like being punched in the throat. We did what we had to do. That was their justification. That was their reason. I showed it to the pastor first. He looked horrified, but I could see hesitation in his eyes. This is a family matter, he said finally. Maybe we should handle this privately. Privately, I said. They tried to kill me. He shook his head. I don't think that's what happened. That's when I realized he'd already chosen a side. They all had. Because this town wasn't about truth, it was about optics. Keeping up the image of good Christian families. And Lisa and my mom were the faces of that image, so I started digging deeper. With Ella's help, I found something else, something that explained why they'd done what they did. It wasn't about faith. It wasn't even about me. It was about money. When Lisa ran that fundraiser, the donations weren't just from the church. She'd set it up publicly, and the link had gone semi-viral. One of her old high school friends had shared it in a Christian parenting Facebook group, and the story of the young girl who survived a suicide attempt thanks to her aunt's love and God's grace had spread. Hundreds of strangers donated. But what no one knew was that Lisa had used my name to apply for a church charity grant, a $10,000 emergency aid fund meant for families in crisis. And guess who had to co-sign for it? My mother. They'd both signed it, using my story to get the money. And when I didn't die, when I woke up, it became inconvenient. Because now I could talk. Now I could contradict their version of events. That's why they needed to silence me. That's why they spread the rumor that I was unstable. That's why Lisa kept saying I was too fragile. Because the truth was, they hadn't just manipulated me emotionally, they'd profited off my near death. And it had worked, until I came back. Ella showed me the paperwork she found in Lisa's home office. She'd been too careless to shred it. My signature was forged. My name, printed under a statement that read, "Funds to support niece's therapy and recovery." When I saw it, I felt something inside me snap. I realized they hadn't done this out of ignorance or desperation. They'd done it with calculation, with motive. They had looked at my pain and seen currency. And when they realized that me surviving could expose them, they didn't apologize, they doubled down. They made me the villain in my own story. It wasn't just cruelty, it was strategy. And that's what chilled me most. Because when I confronted my mom again, when I asked her why, she didn't even flinch. She said, "You'll understand when you're a mother. Sometimes you do ugly things to survive." I just stared at her. "You're calling that survival?" She didn't answer. She just walked out of the room, muttering, "You always make everything about you." Everything about me. That line, cold, dismissive, practiced, was the final confirmation that I didn't exist to her as a person. I was an inconvenience she'd turned into a product. And now I had proof. Proof they stole. Proof they lied. Proof they'd rather let me die than lose their reputation or their grant money. I'd already torn their image apart inside the church. But what I planned next, what I was going to do with that proof, was going to finish them completely. Because they wanted to use my story? Fine. I'd make sure the whole world knew the real version. When I left the church that day, it felt like the world had split in two, the world before everyone knew and the world after. I should have felt triumphant. I'd exposed them in front of the entire congregation. But the truth is I felt hollow, like I'd spent all my breath on the first scream and had nothing left for the quiet that followed. I didn't waste time feeling sorry for myself. Ella stayed with me that week like a nervous shadow, texting screenshots and whispering updates. The pastor tried to stage a mediation, which was just a fancy word for trying to keep the scandal under the church's rug. He asked me if I'd consider a private meeting. I said no. I wanted light, not dusting. The first move I made was practical, evidence. I made 6 physical copies of every file in my truth folder and sent packages the next morning to 3 places: the local paper, the county clerk's office, and an investigative reporter at a regional TV station who had written a scathing piece once about a nonprofit scam. In each envelope, I included a concise cover letter and the original signed documents, the Venmo receipts, the grant application with the forged signature, the voice memo of Lisa, photos of her bag with time-stamped social posts, and my letter as I'd read it from the pulpit. I expected a few calls. I didn't expect the kinetics of it, how fast the dominoes would fall. The reporter called within hours. She asked me a single efficient question. "Do you want us to run it?" I said, "Yes." Run it and run everything. She did. 2 days later, the news ran a piece headlined. Local church fundraiser under investigation after former parishioner alleges fraud and attempted cover-up. They used clips from the church video I'd recorded and had my voice memo transcribed on air. The footage of Lisa clutching her Michael Kors bag like a talisman played in the background. The station called the county prosecutor to ask about the grant. Someone in the office had already flagged it. The county prosecutor called back. He sounded like an animal that had smelled blood on the water. The words forgery and fraud came out plain and hollow, but they meant movement. That's the first twist that really detonated things in a new way. The county's fraud investigator didn't just want to talk to Lisa and my mom, he wanted bank records. He wanted to trace the grant money, all the donations, every transfer. A local church board member who had been friends with Lisa for years got a subpoena. The pastor, who'd been sitting on the fence, had to testify about how the grant came to be and who signed off. His reply echoed through the TV piece was awkward and small. He'd claimed he'd trusted the family, which, to the prosecutor, sounded like negligence at best. The second twist was even nastier and colder. When investigators dug into Lisa's online fundraising account, they discovered a pattern. Not just one $2,000 transfer to my mom, but multiple payments going to a shell account that matched a business Lisa had recently opened. Stitched Blessings LLC, a boutique church event service listing on social media with staged photos of casseroles and devotional brunches. That business had revenue far exceeding what her modest life should have allowed. The bank put a hold on her accounts. The grant money, frozen pending investigation. It was vindicating to watch their faces when the sheriff's deputy asked them to come in for questioning. It was more than vindication. There was something fiercely satisfying about the way the veil tore when people started treating my story like evidence instead of entertainment. People who had once patted Lisa on the back for ministering now asked, "Did you really use that money for therapy?" My cousin's TikToks, those grotesque reenactments, were trending for all the wrong reasons. People dug through their feeds and found selfie ads for sponsored posts, brand deals, and a college scholarship that required good moral character clauses. Colleges called. Sponsors paused. Monetized accounts were demonetized. I didn't want their suffering to be my pleasure, but accountability felt like a clean, surgical thing I needed to watch happen. I'd spent months being reduced to an anecdote. Now they had to be reduced to a ledger. Legally, things moved like molasses, slow enough to remind me that justice is often a long, abrasive instrument, but they moved. The county charged Lisa with felony fraud and my mother for conspiracy to commit fraud. The forged signature on the grant application made it easier for the prosecutor to pursue charges. There was a criminal case, and there was also a civil suit. I filed to reclaim the donation funds and to have the forged grant rescinded. The church board appointed an outside auditor and removed Lisa from her volunteer positions. The pastor resigned from his post amid criticism for failing to act. But revenge without repair is hollow, so I did more than press charges. I redirected the narrative. With the help of Ella and 2 other people who had privately supported me, I set up a public fund, transparent, registered as a 501c3 with documented expenses and oversight, specifically to provide funds for therapy and suicide prevention education in our community. I announced it in a local interview and posted the bank account numbers publicly. People who had given before donated again, but this time they gave to an account with my name on it, not Lisa's. The money went directly to therapists in the area and to educational workshops in schools. There was a reckoning in other ways, too. My cousins lost followers, and more importantly to them, brand deals. They apologized in a shaky video, citing immaturity and poor judgment, but the comments were merciless. My mom refused to speak to me after the indictments. Her lawyers told her not to. She told the press, in a statement arranged by her attorney, that the stress had been too much. I don't know whether she believed her own words. I do know I stopped waiting for the version of her that loved me to appear. She had done ugly things to survive, and now she had to live with that. As for me, the real resolution wasn't in watching them lose status or money. It was in reclaiming a life that was mine. I moved out of the house 2 months after the news piece aired and into a small apartment where I could hear the city at night. I started therapy with a counselor I'd picked myself. I went back to school online. I volunteered with the same suicide prevention group that my new fund supported. I met people who didn't know my last name, who treated me like a whole human instead of a cautionary tale or a viral clip. Those relationships, slow, boring, real, were the stitches I'd needed. There was a final strange twist I hadn't planned. The pastor's resignation created a vacancy. The church asked me to come in and tell my story again, this time as a community forum. I almost declined. Instead, I agreed, but only on my terms. No closed doors, no hush money, and a recorded session. I told them everything, again, this time with clarity and without the rawness that had made people pity me instead of see the crime. When I finished, the congregation was quieter than the first time. Some people left. Some stayed and shook my hand. I wasn't interested in forgiveness from everyone. I wanted them to think, to act, to protect other vulnerable people. The legal stuff will probably drag on. The fraud case is not a neat ending. They may get probation, fines, even jail time, or they may get off with plea deals. I don't know. That's the messy part of life. It rarely resolves like a movie. But the important things did change. My mother and aunt were publicly exposed. The grant was reversed. The boutique business shuttered. The pastor who enabled them was gone. My cousins learned the hard way that cheap laughs have expensive consequences. On a quiet Tuesday, I opened the mailbox and found a letter from a stranger whose life had been saved because of the public fund I'd started. She wrote 3 short lines. "Thank you, I'm alive, I'm getting help." That tiny scrap of paper did what exposure never could, it healed. So what did I get out of revenge? Not pleasure from watching them fall, but a reclaimed agency. I wasn't just the survivor in their story anymore. I was the author of my own life. I'd turned betrayal into accountability and pain into a system that might stop someone else from being used the way I was. And for anyone who still wants closure in a neat sentence, they lost their status, I gained my life, and the church learned the hard lesson that charity without transparency is just theft. Not a perfect ending, nothing real ever is, but enough.